Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another episode of Killer Instincts, the series that aims to give you a basic understanding of each of the killers in Dead by Daylight Mobile. Now before we jump in, if you find this video useful, please slap that like button and consider subscribing to the channel for all things mobile gaming and more Dead by Daylight Mobile content. Let me know what you'd like to see me cover in future videos by commenting down below, or by coming and finding me on any of the social media channels shown along the bottom of your screen now. Alright, that said, let's jump right in. Today we're looking at The Doctor. Carter was a star pupil, fascinated with the human psyche and the idea of deconstructing and analysing the human brain. He was quickly fast-tracked into a top-secret research facility in Illinois, Reese Memorial Hospital, where he was urged to find new ways of experimental interrogation. Carter was encouraged to use any means necessary and was given carte blanche with no questions asked. When the lights flickered more and more and prisoners begged to be sent to anyone except Carter, a blind eye was turned. It was only a week after Reese Memorial Hospital went completely radio silent that the true nature of his unspeakable torture had been discovered. Patients and prisoners reduced to a vegetative state. Carter was never found, and the site was closed and condemned and redacted from all official records. The Doctor is a madness-inducing killer whose perks and abilities are all about driving the survivors insane, impairing their abilities. He initially appears very difficult to counter, which leads many newer survivors to dread facing the Doctor, but he can actually be fairly tricky to use effectively against more experienced prey. The Doctor has two abilities, static shock and shock therapy, and these are both used primarily to apply and increase the madness status effect. Understanding madness is key to understanding the Doctor. First though, we need to understand how to apply it. Static shock generates a blast of static electricity that covers the Doctor's terror radius. Any survivor caught within that blast will scream, alerting the Doctor to their current position and will have any action that they were doing interrupted. Hit survivors will also gain the madness status effect. If they already had madness, it's increased to madness 2, and if they already had madness 2, it's increased to madness 3. Static shock will not hit survivors hiding in lockers though. Static shock has a short charge time of 2 seconds, and the Doctor's movement is considerably slowed while charging it. Note that the range is tied directly to his terror radius, so any perks or add-ons that change or remove the terror radius will also change the range of static shock accordingly. It also has a fairly long cooldown of 60 seconds. His second ability is shock therapy. This blasts an area of 10 meters in front of the Doctor with static electricity. Any survivor hit will scream and have any interaction they were doing interrupted. In addition, they cannot interact with anything for 2.5 seconds further. No vaulting, no pallet drops. Again, shock therapy applies or increases the madness status effect. So what does madness actually do? Well, at Madness 1, survivors have a 33% chance of any skill checks they trigger being mad skill checks. These are skill checks that sometimes come from the other direction, or have the white great area moved to the opposite side. At Madness 2, the mad skill checks become more frequent, with a 66% chance of triggering, and the survivor will also see illusionary doctors from time to time that can be quite disorientating and work with some of the Doctor's add-ons, which we'll discuss later. At Madness 3, survivors are not able to perform any healing, repairing, sabotaging, cleansing, or searching actions. They will also scream intermittently, alerting the Doctor to their position, but they will also gain the snap out of it action. Now, a survivor can use snap out of it to drop themselves back to Madness 1. Any skill checks triggered during this action will be mad skill checks. By applying madness to survivors, the Doctor is able to make it difficult for them to perform any actions, and it makes stealth very difficult, especially once survivors start reaching Madness 3. In the early game, you should start patrolling generators, and once you believe you are near survivors, you can start using static shock to start applying madness. Don't just run around mindlessly trying to use Static Shock. It has a long cooldown, so using it and not hitting any survivors is a large waste of your time and resources as a killer. I like to patrol until I hear a generator being worked on, then use the Static Shock to catch any nearby survivors. If you hit anyone, you'll be alerted to their current position, giving you a good starting point to initiate a chase. Remember, a survivor being chased is one that's not working on generators, but don't focus in on one survivor too much. If you feel like they're distracting you for too long, use your shock therapy ability to apply an extra stack or two of madness, and then find someone else. In a chase, you should always prioritise trying to hit and down survivors, but judicious use of shock therapy will allow you to make their life harder and can help you find them again later. If you find a survivor camping a pallet, you can also use shock therapy to stop them dropping it. At a vault loop, I like to drop the shock therapy in one direction and then run around the other. If they run from me, they get an extra stack of madness. If they avoid the shock therapy, they likely get hit. As the game proceeds, you should be using your Static Shock to build up the survivor's madness and to reveal their positions. Again, only use it when you think there are other survivors nearby. It's tempting to use it immediately upon hooking someone, but there are perks that reveal survivors, and a good survivor will know to expect you using it and likely hide in a nearby locker before going in for a hook rescue. As survivors start reaching Madness 3, they will begin screaming, alerting you to their position, and they're unable to perform any actions until they snap out of it. You can use this to locate survivors for quick and easy hooks, or you can leave the survivor to slink off to try and find a safe space to recover. Either way, they're not working on generators, and a good doctor will know when to chase and when to leave them screaming. Bear in mind that a hooked survivor at Madness 3 will be out of the game for a significant period of time. Once hooked, they're still going to have to heal and snap out of it before they can really begin assisting their team again. Use this to your advantage. Now, the difference between a starting doctor and a good doctor is how you use Static Shock. Newer players will simply use it primarily as a way of finding survivors to chase, whereas more advanced doctors will use it more primarily to apply madness. Like all killers, the Doctor has 3 teachable perks. Overwhelming Presence will make survivors really fear your terror radius, as not only does it put them at threat of static shocks, it also means that their items burn up much faster. Torches will run out of battery quicker, and medikits will no longer supply a full self-heal. Monitor and Abuse is a very interesting perk as it decreases the Doctor's usual terror radius, and therefore also the static shock range, but gives a wider field of vision. When in a chase, however, his terror radius is dramatically increased. I personally love this perk, but curiously, not for the Doctor. Especially for newer Doctor players, you likely want your static shock as large as possible naturally. Overcharge is my favourite of the Doctor's starting perks to use on himself. Essentially, every time you kick a generator, it puts the overcharge effect on it. The next time a survivor tries to repair this generator, they immediately get a very hard skill check. If they fail that skill check, not only does it cause the usual explosion, but it also significantly drops the generator's progress. This is great for stalling the game, and with the mad skill checks that Madness causes, this can be a very difficult skill check to pass. You'll instantly know where survivors are, and you can apply more madness to them, or begin the next chase. There are, of course, other perks to keep a keen eye out for too. Distressing increases your terror radius, and so increases your static shock range too. This makes finding survivors early on that much easier. It also increases the blood points earned in Deviousness category, which you'll max out easily in most games. Barbecue and Chili is also always a great perk, as it'll reveal other survivors to you when you hook someone. This means that you don't have to use that obvious static shock after a hook, and you can move much closer to a revealed survivor, then static shock for both the madness and an update on their position. Okay, well let's have a look at some of the Doctor's add-ons. Now when you're learning the Doctor, the Maple Night add-on can be useful, as it reveals the exact area of effect that shock therapy covers. Eventually you will want to stop using this add-on and you'll understand the range, and want to use that add-on slot for better things. Electrode add-ons can be used to increase the range of shock therapy. If you're using this in chases to apply madness and stop survivors vaulting windows or using pallets, these add-ons can be well worth your time. Order class add-ons add additional effects to your madness. Survivors afflicted by madness will sometimes see illusionary pallets, which will sometimes appear as unused and sometimes appear as dropped. The Doctor can see the aura of these fake pallets, and it's both hilarious and very useful to watch a survivor camp a pallet that isn't actually there, ready to drop it on your head, only for you to charge through and down them. Calm class add-ons increase your terror radius when static shock is available to use, and they decrease it when it's not. This means that your static shocks have larger areas of effect. Also, survivors afflicted by madness will hit a fake terror radius. At Madness 2, this is random and intermittent. At Madness 3, though, the fake terror radius effect is constant, so survivors will have no real way to tell how close you are by their heartbeat. Restraint class add-ons reveal a survivor's aura for a short period when their madness increases. This will help you see where they're headed when you hit them with a static shock. Survivors afflicted by madness will also see more illusionary doctors, and you can see the white aura of those doctors too. This means that you can see where afflicted survivors are by the illusionary doctors appearing near them. Discipline class add-ons cause survivors afflicted with Madness 2 to see an illusionary red stain and terror radius as if the killer were right behind them for 6 seconds after a chase ends. At Madness 3, the fake terror radius and red stain are permanent. In either case, the doctor can see these fake red stains too, so even if a survivor successfully escapes you, you'll be able to see exactly where they're headed. The permanent effect at Madness 3 also makes it very difficult for survivors to actually slow down, accept the chase is over, and proceed with their objectives. I have genuinely witnessed survivors keep running for so long after the chase has ended that they often loop back around the map right into me. The Iridescent King add-on is a very powerful piece and essentially combines all 4 of the class add-ons into one. This can be sensory overload for a newer doctor, but the information granted and the utter insanity applied to survivors with madness makes this one of the most insanely fun add-ons in the game, in my opinion. The Iridescent Queen is another interesting add-on for the doctor. When you hit a survivor with static shock or shock therapy, you also give them a permanent static charge. If they come close to another survivor, that static charge will shock the other survivor just like you'd hit them with shock therapy. This increases their madness, causes them to scream and reveal their position, and uses up the static charge. It's great for finding survivors that are grouping up and working as a team. The Doctor can be very rewarding to play, and the utter insanity you can wreak on survivors is equally hilarious and devastating. This means that the Doctor can be very difficult for inexperienced survivors to face. This will make you very unpopular with some of them. As a survivor though, when facing a Doctor, there are a few key things that you can do to help ease your escape. Firstly, respect that terror radius. If you're in terror radius and not in a locker, you are vulnerable to a static shock. Either move out of the terror radius, hide in a locker until it passes, or risk having your madness increasing. In a chase, try not to be predictable and don't rely on vaults or pallets if you can see that the Doctor is raising a hand for shock therapy. Use your brain. The class add-ons can be incredibly confusing to a survivor, but if something seems out of place, check. If you feel like there's no way that he's still right behind you and chasing, it might be that you're under the effects of the Discipline class add-on. Use the look behind function just to quickly double check. If you're really struggling to escape from Doctors, consider running the Calm Spirit perk, as it is a direct counter to most of the Doctor's abilities. All in all though, the Doctor is a polarizing killer. On one end, he's very straightforward to use for newer players as he can quickly find survivors, and can be very distressing for newer survivors to deal with. On the other end, he can be tricky to use against experienced survivors due to his lack of chase-ending tools, and it's very easy to punish a predictable Doctor. I hope this helps some of you get the hang of a very rewarding killer, and maybe helps you understand how to counter him a little bit better. As always, Killer Instincts are not meant to be in-depth guides, rather just a basic tutorial to help you better understand the killer in question. I'll have missed many key tips and tricks in this video, and I do encourage you to do further research, watch some streamers and pro players, and most importantly, get out there and try it all for yourself. Happy sailing, and see you in the fog!